I never thought a family dinner could erase 10 years of sacrifice in a single sentence. But that night, sitting at the table I had paid for, eating food I had bought, my father looked at me and said, "You can take the guest room. Or move out." No warning. No discussion. Just a decision made without me. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I smiled. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is stay quiet when everyone expects you to break. What happened after that dinner destroyed a family illusion, exposed a lie built on my silence, and changed my life forever. If you've ever been taken for granted by the people you sacrificed everything for, this story is for you. Stay until the end, you'll understand why walking away was the most powerful move I ever made. And before we go on, if you feel this already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been treated as disposable by your own family? At 34, I didn't live in my parents' house because I couldn't leave. I lived there because I was the reason it still stood. I'm Emma Carter, an environmental engineer, and for years my life ran on spreadsheets, deadlines, and quiet sacrifices no one ever noticed. While my colleagues used their bonuses to travel or invest, mine went into mortgage payments, leaking pipes, a new refrigerator when the old one died, and utilities that magically became too expensive for my parents to handle alone. I told myself it was temporary. That family helps family. That being the eldest meant carrying more weight. I worked late, came home exhausted, and still listened to complaints about the house, about money, about how stressed everyone else was. No one asked how I was. No one asked what I needed. My value was measured in what I paid for, not who I was. My younger brother, Ryan, drifted in and out with big ideas and empty results. His wife, Claire, arrived polished, confident, always talking about opportunities. My parents' eyes lit up for them in ways they never did for me. I noticed. I always noticed. I just stayed quiet. Because when you're the responsible one, you learn early that silence keeps things running. And I believed, wrongly, that as long as I held everything together, I still belonged. That illusion was already cracking. I just didn't know yet how violently it was about to shatter. Ryan had always been the center of gravity in our family. Loud, charming, full of confidence that never seemed to require proof. Every failed business idea became a learning experience. Every lost dollar was brushed off as bad timing. And every time he needed help, it appeared, usually funded by money I had quietly provided without anyone acknowledging the source. Claire amplified everything about him. She was sharp, well-dressed, always 2 steps ahead in conversation. She spoke about real estate deals, investments, connections she couldn't name yet. My parents listened to her the way people listen to authority. When she entered a room, she filled it. When I entered, I blended into the background, like furniture that had always been there. At dinner, Ryan mocked my job, calling it cute and safe. Claire laughed and added that I was too serious for my age. My father smiled, proud of their confidence. My mother said nothing, just passed the food and avoided my eyes. I learned then that approval in our house wasn't earned by consistency or sacrifice. It was earned by performance. I paid the bills. They collected the praise. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear them talking about the future, about how Ryan and Claire were going places, how exciting it was to have ambition in the family. I wondered if they realized those conversations were happening under a roof I kept standing. Or maybe they did, and chose not to care. That imbalance settled into my bones. Because when people get used to taking from you, they stop seeing you as a person at all. And I was starting to understand that in this family, I wasn't the daughter they protected. I was the resource they assumed would never run out. It didn't start with shouting or cruelty. It started small, almost polite. A suggestion made over dinner, disguised as practicality. My father mentioned that since Ryan and Claire were building something bigger, it made sense to redirect some household expenses. Just temporarily. Until they got settled. He didn't ask if I agreed. He stated it like a logistical adjustment, the way you'd move furniture to make space. My name was never mentioned, but the expectation hung heavy in the air. I would cover it. I always did. A week later, I noticed charges on my account I didn't recognize. Utilities were higher. Groceries doubled. New appliances arrived without warning. When I asked, my mother smiled nervously and said Claire had a good taste and found great deals. Ryan joked that I should relax. Money came easily to me, didn't it? That was the moment something shifted. Not anger. Awareness. I realized no one was tracking what was mine versus what was theirs. In their minds, it had already merged. My effort, my income, my limits, they were invisible details no longer worth discussing. I started paying closer attention. The way conversations stopped when I entered the room. The way decisions were announced after they'd already been made. The way Claire spoke about the house like it was a shared investment, even though her name wasn't on a single document. It was subtle. Quiet. Easy to dismiss. And that's why it worked. Because the first injustice is never loud. It's designed to test how much you'll tolerate before you notice you're being slowly erased. The dinner that changed everything was meant to be casual. No candles. No celebration. Just the four of us, seated like always. But this time, Ryan and Claire arrived late, laughing, carrying keys they swung like trophies. Claire placed them on the table on purpose. "We're moving in," she said, smiling too wide. "It'll just make things easier." I looked at my father, waiting for him to correct her. He didn't. He cleared his throat and finally spoke, his voice flat, rehearsed. "You can take the guest room. Or, you can move out." The room went silent. My fork hovered midair. For years, I had paid the mortgage when they were short. Covered repairs. Replaced appliances. Quietly kept the house standing. And now I was being downsized in my own home like an inconvenience. Ryan smirked. Claire didn't look at me, she was already imagining where her furniture would go. I waited for my mother to say something. Anything. She stared at her plate. I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed. But because I understood. This wasn't about space. It was about hierarchy. About who mattered, and who was expected to adapt without complaint. "I'll move out," I said calmly. They looked relieved. Victorious. No one noticed that I didn't argue. No one wondered why my hands were steady. They thought this was the end of my resistance. They had no idea it was the moment I stopped protecting them and started protecting myself. I moved out quietly. No slammed doors. No speeches. Just boxes, one by one, carried out of the house I had helped hold together for over a decade. I took what I paid for, the washer, the refrigerator, the desk I worked endless nights on, even the light fixtures I had installed myself. Each item felt less like furniture and more like proof that I had existed there at all. No one stopped me. My father watched from the doorway, arms crossed, as if I were a tenant overstaying a lease. My mother hugged me quickly, apologizing without words, the way she always did, soft enough to mean nothing. Ryan joked that I was being dramatic. Claire smiled and said they'd replace everything eventually. By nightfall, my childhood home felt hollow. And so did I. The loss wasn't just physical. It was the realization that my value had always been conditional. As long as I paid, fixed, sacrificed, I belonged. The moment I needed recognition, I became optional. That first night alone in a tiny rental, I sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, listening to the silence. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't open. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was grieving something more dangerous to lose than money or shelter. I was grieving the illusion that loyalty was mutual. And once that illusion shattered, there was no reason left to protect anyone but myself. The days after I left blurred together. I went to work, answered emails, smiled in meetings, but everything felt distant, like I was watching my own life through glass. At night, the silence pressed in. No footsteps. No arguments. No expectations. Just me, alone with the weight of everything I'd swallowed for years. I stopped reaching out. I muted the family chat. When my mother called, I let it ring. When my father texted about a utility bill I was no longer paying, I deleted it. I wasn't punishing them. I was conserving myself. Some nights, the doubt crept in. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have stayed quiet like before. That voice sounded familiar, it was the one I'd used to survive. But survival had cost me too much already. I cried once. Just once. Sitting on the edge of my bed, holding my knees, realizing how deeply I had tied my worth to being needed. When that role was taken away, I didn't know who I was supposed to be. So I went quiet. Not to disappear, but to listen. Because in that stillness, something shifted. Beneath the sadness, beneath the exhaustion, there was clarity forming. I started replaying conversations differently. Remembering details I'd ignored. Comments Claire made that never sat right. Documents I'd signed without questioning. Jokes Ryan laughed too hard at. The collapse wasn't loud. It was internal. And it was making space for something far more deliberate to take its place. The shift didn't happen all at once. It arrived quietly, the way resolve always does. One morning, I woke up and realized I wasn't sad anymore. I was focused. The pain had finished teaching me what it came to teach. I stopped asking why they did this and started asking how. How had Claire gained so much influence so quickly? How had documents moved without my knowledge? How had my parents signed things they barely understood? And most importantly, how long had this been happening while I was too busy keeping the house afloat to notice? I opened my laptop and began retracing steps. Old emails. Payment records. Renovation invoices. I had covered myself. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for truth. And truth leaves patterns. That's when I saw it, the same real estate firm name appearing again and again. Claire's connections. Her casual bragging. Her habit of steering conversations away when finances came up. None of it was random. For the first time, I didn't feel small at the dinner table anymore. I felt ahead. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't warn them. Strategy doesn't announce itself. It watches. It waits. It lets people reveal exactly who they are when they think no one is paying attention. That night, I wrote one sentence in my notebook. I'm done protecting people who never protected me. I didn't know exactly how this would end yet. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was no longer reacting. I was choosing my next move. From the outside, it looked like they had everything under control. My brother, Daniel, walked around the house like it already belonged to him. Claire redecorated rooms I had paid for, criticizing my outdated taste while ordering new furniture on her phone. My father started repeating her opinions as if they were his own. My mother stayed quiet, smiling nervously, pretending stability was the same as peace. They stopped asking me anything. That was the tell. Bills were no longer discussed. Decisions were made without me. When I did speak, my words floated past them, unchallenged and unheard. It wasn't respect, it was dismissal. They believed I was finished. That I had left with nothing but pride and hurt feelings. Claire was especially careless. She talked too much when she thought she was admired. About deals that had to move fast. About signatures that were just formalities. About how lucky my parents were to have her handling things now that I was out of the way. I listened. Quietly. Carefully. Because when people think they've won, they stop hiding. They confuse silence with surrender. They underestimate how dangerous it is to be ignored by someone who knows the system and has nothing left to lose. They thought I had walked away defeated. What they didn't see was that I was no longer inside the storm. I was standing above it, watching the cracks spread, and waiting for the moment one of them would widen just enough. I spent weeks observing, piecing together what I had missed. Every interaction, every casual comment, every hurried signature Claire celebrated as victory became data. I made mental notes: who she trusted, who followed her without question, who could be influenced. Patterns emerged like cracks in glass, delicate but undeniable. Daniel repeated phrases she planted. My father nodded at suggestions that didn't make sense. Even my mother's silence spoke volumes. She had learned long ago that disagreement led nowhere. Each behavior confirmed the system Claire had built around herself, a house of cards balanced on arrogance and assumed obedience. I took screenshots, saved emails, kept records. Nothing obvious, nothing confrontational. Just quiet accumulation. Claire's carelessness was astonishing, boasting about wire transfers, showing off documents she believed were invisible to me. Each mistake was a thread I could pull. I wasn't angry. Anger is loud and temporary. I was calculating. My strategy was patient, almost surgical. I waited for confirmation of what I suspected, that her empire in our parents' home was built on lies, manipulation, and misused finances. That the family had been blind because they wanted to be. And that, ultimately, all of that blindness would become her undoing. I smiled quietly, alone in my apartment, sipping tea. Because knowing the truth before they suspected it gave me the kind of power no confrontation ever could. The pieces were falling into place. The question was, when would I make my move? The first step was small, almost imperceptible. I didn't storm into their lives or send warnings. I began by closing the joint utilities I had paid for, the bills that gave them comfort and control. Daniel complained, Claire huffed, but my father didn't intervene. He assumed it was temporary, a minor inconvenience. Next, I contacted the bank, requesting detailed statements. Every wire transfer, every withdrawal, every large repair expense was laid bare in front of me. The numbers confirmed what I already knew: Claire had been funneling money into accounts under her control. My parents had signed papers without reading. My brother had trusted her blindly. I created a digital folder, a timeline, proof, everything meticulously organized. Emails, invoices, photos of receipts, and screenshots of their boasting in private chats. Every careless boast became evidence. Every laugh at my expense was a breadcrumb. And then I waited. I didn't alert anyone. I let them believe they were untouchable. I stayed calm at work, smiling through meetings, acting like the drama of my family was behind me. Because strategy is silent. It thrives in patience. And when the time came to strike, it would be so precise, so undeniable, that even arrogance couldn't escape it. The trap was almost ready. And they were walking into it blindly, thinking they had already won. Just when I thought the path was clear, an unexpected complication arose. One of the family's neighbors, a nosy acquaintance, noticed my investigation, documents temporarily left open on my desk during a visit. They asked questions I hadn't anticipated, curious about my actions, the bank calls, the subtle changes I'd made. It was small, almost meaningless, but enough to threaten exposure. If the wrong person connected the dots, Claire could catch wind of my plan. My careful, silent strategy risked unraveling before I even made my first public move. I felt the familiar surge of anxiety, the pulse in my temples reminding me that control was fragile. I realized I had to adjust. Patience was my ally, but I needed to add misdirection. I began planting subtle distractions, emails hinting at mundane tasks, phone calls pretending to consult over minor work issues, even friendly conversations to divert attention from my true focus. Every step required meticulous balance. Too much secrecy, and suspicion would rise. Too little, and my leverage could vanish. I stayed awake at night, reviewing my evidence again, planning contingencies, ensuring no accidental leak could ruin months of preparation. The tension was intoxicating. The trap was ready, but even the best-laid plans must account for unpredictability. And now, I had to wait for the perfect moment to turn complication into opportunity. I realized the next step would cost me something personal. To expose Claire completely, I needed undeniable proof, documents she had hidden in my parents' study, a conversation she'd recorded, a ledger she thought I'd never see. But accessing it meant entering the house she controlled, putting myself in direct confrontation, risking exposure, and possibly angering my parents further. I paused, considering the stakes. I could play it safe, stay in my apartment, keep the strategy entirely remote, but then the impact would be weaker, the evidence circumstantial. To win decisively, I had to risk something I had built over years, my emotional stability, my patience, my control. I went at dawn, carrying nothing but a phone, a notebook, and nerves hidden beneath calm. Every creak of the floorboards, every muted laugh from inside, felt amplified. I took the ledger, photographed the falsified documents, recorded snippets of her own admissions. Every second was tense. Every decision mattered. By the time I left, my heart pounded, not from fear of failure, but from the weight of what I had done. I had risked exposure, risked confrontation, risked their anger. But I also knew something crucial: without this sacrifice, victory would never come. Sometimes, to win, you must give up comfort, certainty, and safety. And I was ready. Everything was in place. Every conversation, every document, every carefully recorded piece of evidence sat ready, organized, undeniable. The final trap wasn't loud or theatrical, it was precise. I invited the family to what they thought was a simple dinner, nothing more than a reunion. The timing was perfect, everyone would be there, in one room, under the illusion of normalcy. Claire arrived, confident, flaunting her control over the house and the finances. Daniel mirrored her arrogance, smugly anticipating my discomfort. My parents, as usual, observed without truly seeing. I smiled quietly, the calm in my chest masking the storm I was about to unleash. I pulled out the files, the recordings, the proofs they had never imagined I could access. I didn't accuse, I presented. Every bank transfer, every fraudulent signature, every boastful text was laid bare. The room went silent. Claire's charm faltered. Daniel's smugness cracked. My parents' passive expressions turned to shock. No words of confrontation, no emotional outburst. Just truth, undeniable and precise. The trap didn't need drama, it needed clarity. And in that clarity, the house of lies collapsed around them, exactly as I had predicted. And as they realized the web of deception was exposed, I saw something I hadn't expected: quiet, absolute power in knowing that patience, strategy, and intelligence always win over arrogance and deceit. The room was heavy with silence, each family member frozen as the truth unfolded. Claire tried to speak, to deflect, to charm her way out, but every lie had been countered with evidence. Her confidence crumbled with every document, every photo, every recording I placed on the table. Daniel stammered, realizing his smug assumptions had led him nowhere. My parents sat in stunned disbelief, finally seeing what I had tried to warn them about for years. Their silence was louder than any argument, a testament to how completely they had ignored me. I didn't yell. I didn't beg them to understand. I simply presented the facts: the fraudulent loans, the falsified documents, the misused funds. The investigators arrived right on cue, quietly confirming everything in front of them. Claire's face turned pale. Daniel's arrogance dissolved into panic. The moment was electric, not because of confrontation, but because truth had power. And in that room, I watched their carefully constructed world unravel. Every plan, every lie, every attempt to belittle me fell apart. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was justice delivered silently, strategically, and perfectly. And as the authorities escorted Claire away, I realized, sometimes, the strongest victory is knowing you waited, calculated, and struck at the perfect moment. The house was quiet when I finally stepped outside, leaving behind the chaos I had orchestrated. Claire was gone, escorted by investigators, her empire of lies crumbled in front of everyone. Daniel slumped into defeat, no charm, no excuses, just the reality of his complacency. My parents, faces pale and eyes heavy with realization, finally saw me, not the invisible daughter they had ignored, but the woman who had acted when they wouldn't. I didn't gloat. I didn't seek apologies. I had no need. My victory wasn't in humiliation, it was in truth, strategy, and self-respect. I walked away from their demands, their stares, their unspoken regrets. My apartment felt lighter, my steps steadier. I had reclaimed not just financial independence, but emotional sovereignty. Over the next weeks, the aftermath revealed itself fully. The bank recovered the fraudulent loans, the house's ownership was clarified, and Claire disappeared from the family and public life. Daniel and my parents struggled to regain footing, but I no longer felt tethered to their mistakes. My career flourished, my projects expanded, my friendships and alliances deepened. I realized, finally, that family isn't who expects your labor or loyalty, it's who respects, protects, and honors you. Choosing myself, defending what was mine, and exposing the truth wasn't selfish, it was survival and reclamation. And as I sat on my balcony, city lights shimmering below, I felt an unfamiliar but profound peace. The battle had ended, but the lesson endured. Strength is silent, patience is power, and justice, true justice, requires both. Sometimes, the most important inheritance isn't money, it's dignity. And mine was intact. If this story captivated you, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to show your support, leave a comment to share your thoughts or tell us what you would have done in her place, and make sure to subscribe for more intense, real-life stories of strategy, courage, and justice. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and gives you a front row seat to every twist and revelation.